speculative when it's like a junior gold company.
Sure enough, yeah.
But I guess there are more seasoned, mature companies that operate in that space that you can invest in that would buy those junior companies once they actually hit something. But yeah, I think it's very tempting to try to have any sort of stock selection and to actually day trade or just actively manage a portfolio. I think it's rewarding when you see the green. And,
yeah.
I don't believe that there's that I have any edge over anybody else that's on the other end of the internet. And so it's like, well, why trick myself?
One of the things I think about in relation to that prospective forecast of what could be if I ever make it there is how it would change me as an individual. So if I ever figure out some, I don't know, discovery or whatever that drastically shifts my fortunes, one of the biggest concerns I have is what is it going to do to me as an individual, the way I currently am, and how am I going to shift or change along with it?
Yeah, I've had those thoughts too. I mean, I don't know that many people that that have fortunes that are stressed. I think the saying that money doesn't buy happiness, whether that's true or not is up for debate, but I think money might relieve stress based on the sample that I've looked at.
So true. I think
the number one thing that stresses people out is financial stress.
Yeah, lots of conflict from there, right?
And maybe number 2 is body image, and number 3 is I don't know, but there's it's pretty high up there on the list. So I think that that removing some of that stress would be kind of fun, and to maybe also have the ability to give back more. I think can be really rewarding.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're the kind of person that would give back more today, regardless of what you have, then I think you're going to still be that type of person if you had generated a bunch of wealth in the future.
So one of the channels I love watching on YouTube is this one called Alux, and they sort of have some really keen insights on economics and Alux, A-L-U-X.
Oh, Alux.
Yeah. I think it has fantastic content, but it did mention that where it said all money does is reveals who a person really is. If they're already an asshole to begin with, it's just going to make them a bigger one when they have money. If they were, and so it's mimicking what you were saying. If you had decent intentions from the get-go kind of thing, and you have a win.
You're a charitable person, the money doesn't change that.
Right.
I think maybe it's the way that someone kind of earns their money, though.
Sure.
That can actually reflect on those personality traits that you can't really change.
So true.
So that's,
would you say
that's something that you need to consider, though, if you accumulate a lot of wealth and you bring people into this world and you have little kids, you gotta be careful because you don't want to turn them into the kind of people that you set out to not be.
Right. Exactly. That's another double whammy, right?
Yeah, because you don't want to bring them into the world and then kind of just is a net zero to your legacy.
Exactly, yeah. That's a really good point. And even though I like the idea that we can remain unchanged, even if we have money, it still sketches me out though. It's still at some point.
Yeah, because I think it also depends on when the wealth comes. And you can look at the average kind of one-hit wonder superstar who made a bunch of money when they were really young. That might have negatively impacted them for the rest of their lives. I'm sure there's tons of people that, if they were a little bit later on in their life, maybe they sort of already had a chance to sort of grow into a better person.
like I remember I used to be a tree planter for years, and one summer I remember, like we would always get brand new trucks, like brand new 4x4 jacked up trucks that we would lease for our summer plants.
Yeah,
Exactly. And it was fantastic. We got to take these trucks out there. They were competent trucks. We got to go 4x4 and just kind of drive them really well on these logging roads. But I remember on one of our days off one time I was driving the company truck into the small town we were in, and I pulled up to the traffic light beside this small rust beater, like remember we used to have a lot more of those on the road once upon a time.
Yeah.
And I looked down at the teens who were inside, enjoying their ride or whatever, and I caught myself almost like looking down and saying, oh, look at what I'm in compared to what you guys are in.
Yeah.
And the reality of the fact is my own beater was back at the company lot still, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it caught that shift there, and it really like all of a sudden made me think, this is what I didn't want to be, but I want to become, like how it shifts me that I have this truck that isn't even my own, but just because I was behind the wheel, I was driving confidently, I had that sense of airs that made me sort of rub off the wrong way.
Humility kind of disappears.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what happens when the money does come? That okay, yes, it takes stress away, which is a fantastic thing. It adds to our mental health. But how to keep from that zone of presumptuousness that you have more like entitlement, maybe saying.
Yeah, and to stay grounded and to
absolutely
keep perspective, I guess, on everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know how easy that is, because I've been around both sides. And I can kind of see how it impacts people.
Oh, totally, yeah.
That's a good point.
Anyway, so at least that's where my thought process is in reference to if I ever, like, it's not that I won't, but if I ever get there, how can I be so sensitive of that zone to stay far away from that precipice?
Yeah. I guess I just want to get in and get out.
Oh, gotcha,
and then go to a small town.
Ideally.
Where I've got nobody to compare myself to. I'm just hanging out with me and my family or something.
Do you think then it is a matter of just the influence of society in bigger centers that drives people to that comparison?
Oh, for sure. There's a societal thing there on the bigger city scale. Yeah.
Interesting.
When you're in a smaller town, it's just, I mean, maybe you still kind of feel that way, but it's different.
Okay. Kind of like the Joneses down the street kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just a much tighter knit community. I think if you're the smaller the town gets.
Yeah.
At least that's my experience.
I remember I used to be in a band back in my 20s, and this band had been around for decades. Like I was one of the youngest members in this band.
Yeah.
And the thing about being part of this band, they played really good music. They were a lot of fun. We had such a grand time. However, I was talking to one of the older members, and she was telling me about her 50th high school reunion.
Yeah.
She's already at that point, right? And I was asking her just about the experience through the years, and here's what she told me. I've never forgotten it. She said, she said, Binyam, 10-year, 20-year, they were still write-offs for her because there was still that sense of cliquishness that had carried on from high school, right? Everyone is still kind of doing the comparison thing. But once she hit the 30-year mark, she said, and onward, everyone was like, screw this. Like, we don't have anything to prove anymore, right? And it sort of like melted all those cliques, if you will, those like comparison dynamics. And so that's what you reminded me of when you're saying in the city it could be a lot more comparative that way.
Yeah, and I think change with population and also age for sure. Because you just stop kind of caring about what other people think. Yeah, I think it also can be related to how judgmental you are. If you're a judgmental person, you're going to think other people are judging you.
Oh.
So the less judgmental you are,
how interesting.
Or you'll just realize that you'll believe that nobody else is judgmental because you're not being judgmental.
See, my experience along those lines is I endeavor not to be judgmental of other people. I want to make sure that they feel safe around me.
Yeah.
But I'm super harsh on myself.
Yeah.
In my own self-analyzing, saying, here's whatever I think I should be, so I'm harder on myself. And the challenge now that I'm working through is how to actually treat myself in the way that I treat others, and being gracious and being...
I guess I've never had a problem being hard on myself, though, because I think that's
To excel. To push yourself.
And yeah, well, to really succeed, if you've got goals.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you've got a lifestyle that you want.
Yeah.
You got it. Because no one else is going to do it for you.
True.
So,
True.
I have no problem being a hard myself.
Yeah.
But I do agree, like, you don't want to treat others like that, for sure. I'm the exception. Otherwise I'd have no friends. So, I don't know, I do catch myself doing that sometimes to my closer friends. But, not really.
Actually, I would probably say for me, it's probably a balance that I'm trying to strike. And yes, by all means, pursue excellence as far as I'm concerned. How can I add value? How can I keep on growing? But then how to not make it so that I'm talking down to myself saying, oh, you're terrible, you're full of crap, you're worthless, that kind of thing. That's, I think, when the expressions may get, in my scenario, to be more unhelpful, unhealthy.
Yeah. It has to be directed.
Yeah.
It's logical, I guess.
Sure enough.
Where were you planting trees?
BC and Alberta.
Okay.
So we do our spring plants in BC, starting up north in Prince George and Bear Lake and all that northern area, and then we would transition in the summer to like here in Alberta around Cremona area.
Which area?
Cremona.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Okay, it's not too far. Well, Cochrane. It's not too far from Cochrane.
Okay.
Kind of out in the back there.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like going to the back country.
Yeah. Well, I definitely got my fill of it over the few years that I planted trees.